Hi, it's me, Chris Harder, and welcome back to Showboys, the podcast bringing you a glittery, gritty, full frontal glimpse into the world of boylesque. What is boylesque? We're going to find out. Now, technically, my guest today is not only a show boy, he is a show king, known equally for his penchant for penguin tails as well as his penetrating smolder. Sometimes you can catch him as a supernaturally sexy Sam Winchester. Other times he's a mega-haired Mankato cartoon or a Fists of Fury Wreck-It Ralph. He's been performing drag in the Twin Cities and nationally since 2001 and is the producer of Dragged Out, one of the longest-running drag king shows in the Midwest. He's one half of the duo Nadi X and a wholehearted supporter of dogs and burlesque divas everywhere. Whether he's tickling your funny bone or tackling political themes, you better believe he lives up to his tagline of Commander in Heat. So please put a napkin under your seat now and welcome to the Showboys stage, Xavier. Hi, Xavier.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh my God, thank you so much for being here. I feel like Midwesterners habitually ask about the weather, and as a Midwesterner myself, I just have to ask you, how's the weather today?
Probably a lot of Minnesotans complaining about the heat right now because it's about in the 90s over here. And of course, we're the land of 10,000 lakes. So with that comes the humidity and probably all the mosquitoes too.
I was just gonna say the land of like 10,000 lakes and uncountable mosquitoes.
Yeah, that's always the joke of the state bird being mosquitoes, and
Yeah.
or the land of 10,000 mosquitoes.
It's so funny. I was talking to my dad the other day, who always complains about the weather. But, I'm from North Dakota, and I feel like for some reason we don't get any of the humidity. It's either like dry and sub-zero or it's dry and blistering. So I don't know. I don't know if you can have it a happy medium in the Midwest or not.
Absolutely not. My favorite time of the year, we don't really have it anymore because it just goes from winter to summer. I typically like spring to where everything is growing, beautiful green, not too
Mm.
hot, not too cold. But no, we just go right from one to the other and it's just like, oh, like can we just have a happy little medium?
Yes, please, Mother Nature, if you're a fan of the pod, please respond accordingly. I was gonna start off with actually some Midwest questions. Are you originally from Minnesota?
Yes, I am from St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm currently in Minneapolis right now. However, from my late teens to my mid 20s, I moved around a lot. But over time, I've gotten to always come back. But I've learned that the bubble here in Twin Cities, especially the queer bubble, is amazing and is not really replaceable.
Yeah, I'm so happy you said that because, again, when I was growing up in North Dakota, there were definitely pockets of queer people, but I was really surprised as an adult when I finally got to perform and work more in Minneapolis because there's such a vibrant queer and kink scene in the Twin Cities.
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of people get surprised, especially that have never visited or really don't know much about Minnesota. They think it's like farms and cows or pretty much backward thinking. But when you come to the Twin Cities, it's a vibrant, queer life here. And I am so spoiled. And also knowing that the Twin Cities Pride here, I'm I'm not absolutely sure if it is still, but I know it is was actually along with the top 3 with the biggest prides along with New York and San Francisco.
Oh yeah, I had such a blast. I got to perform and march in the parade. I think like 5 years ago or something through Electric Cube, but it was amazing, and the turnout and support was also incredible too. Are you in the parade?
It's actually been years since I've been in the parade, but I am actually fine with that because my Pride weekend is always stacked and busy, but I will actually be performing while the parade is happening. So there is that.
Oh, nice, nice. You know, I was reading a couple of articles about drag in Minneapolis, and there was this great one that mentioned you and dragged out. But, you know, again, this is just my own fault, but I didn't realize what a rich drag history there is in Minneapolis as well. When did you start getting into drag?
I started getting into drag about the early 2000s, 2001 in particular. There, for drag at that time, it was very different than it is now. Drag at that time was solely in queer bars.
Hmm.
There was one in particular in St. Paul called Club Metro. That place eventually got sold off, but that bar was the most amazing queer club that I have ever experienced. And when it got sold out, a lot of us performers or eventual performers were like, well, now there's no more drag king shows. Like, there's none happening. And there was like one person that has only performed once on stage, but the rest of us never did. And we were like, well, let's just make one.
Hmm.
And from then on, we like started making our own shows, going to different venues in St. Paul to perform or creating our troupe. But yeah, also drag at that time was very different as well because there was always one person you knew that had connection to the internet, and that's where you'd get your songs off of LimeWire versus
Yes.
or you would go to the local shop to search all over through the CDs to find your one song on the album. And of course, the rest of the album usually sucked, but
Yes. Oh my God, yes. I also just miss, I really do miss CDs, not to date myself. Like I miss the CD art and like the, you know, like the lyrics and everything like that printed out.
oh, that is if you won the lottery in CDs, is if you actually got the lyrics in the little sleeve. Or
Right.
else if you didn't, you were just like constantly listening to the song and writing it down, like hoping that you're hearing it right.
Right. How long does it take you to memorize a song usually?
For the most part, it doesn't take me long at all. It like I can start listening to a song a few days beforehand and typically have it down, unless it's songs like so I perform Weird Al Yankovic's White and Nerdy, and that's probably one of the most difficult ones because it's just so many words and so many words that you don't typically use all in one song. So that took me a little while to learn, but overall, it's usually not a challenge for me.
What's one of the lyrics from White and Nerdy? Can you rattle it off top of your head?
Oh my god, the putting me on the spot like this. I can't even think of it right now. It's been years since I performed it, which by the way is also because I started in 2020 microdosing testosterone. So
Hmm.
all my costuming
Oh.
really fits me anymore. I gained 75 pounds of body mass, and now currently in the process of getting them altered. And sadly, I've had to put some on hold for a while.
Yeah, well, you know, I always do research on all of my interviewees, which usually just involves a lot of Instagram stalking. So, I mean, you looked great pre-microdosing, and you look exceptionally hot now as well, if I may say so. So,
Thank you.
fantastic. I also used to microdose some testosterone for a while, and pretty much all of my costumes, like my ass would not fit. So,
Oh, that is definitely one, the pants of all things. Like I just definitely gained an ass for sure.
yes. When you were starting out in drag, did you have a drag dad or a drag mom?
So when I first started out with drag, it was not as common with a lot of performers to have a drag family.
Mm.
And at that time, from what I remember, how drag families happened are completely different than what they are now. From what I remember, so I only go by Xavier, and that's how a lot of us performers at that time went. There was not as many that actually had a full name.
Mm.
So when it came to drag families, from what I remember, is that the existing drag family, if one person was interested in bringing somebody into their family, they had to basically put in a nomination to that family, and they looked over what kind of volunteer work and things you have done to help the queer community.
Mm.
They looked over that, and then the family decided if they wanted to bring you in or not. So that is from what I remember how drag movies were made. And now I'm just like it amazes me because I see so many different drag families where it's like doesn't matter, newer young performers having drag babies, like taking names, and like the only part that I wish I could see more of when it comes to drag families is not just the fun of taking each other's names, but to actually have mentoring going on,
Yeah.
showing the risks, and guiding these newer performers versus just like a whole yay, we're at the bar and like you're now my drag
Mhm.
kid, you know?
Well, it was interesting last night. I went to the Big Drag King show, which was hosted and produced by Murray Hill, and the turnout was incredible. And I think in drag queen communities that I've observed, and also even in burlesque in the larger community, it's tight knit. But last night it just struck me like how tight knit this drag king community felt, and I was just wondering, do you feel like that's the case kind of everywhere, or like when you're talking about those drag families, was that like drag queens and drag kings, or was it only drag kings? What was it like?
I think with the drag families back then, they were mixed, even
Mm-hmm.
though a lot of them ended up being queens. But when it comes to the tight knit of drag kings, I definitely say there is. When it comes to my show Dragged Out, I kind of flip the script. So most drag shows will be like all queens, and then you'll probably have maybe one king.
Yeah.
I flip that script. It's the opposite way around. I will have a queen, maybe two, but overall, and of course, also burlesque as well, because I really want to be able to support the femme queers, the AFAB queers as well, because
Mm-hmm.
they definitely deserve a spot as well. But when it comes to the tight knit of the king community, it is so there. When the queens visit and are a guest in my show, I always get to hear about how being in this king show is one of their favorites because we come together and have so much fun, and it is like not any pressure to where everybody can feel like they can be themselves and just be ridiculous and let go. And I feel like that is
Mm-hmm.
a in drag king communities we have that, and also we support each other because we know how we all get overlooked within performance communities. So typically we are there for each other.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. That kind of is a perfect segue into my next question because Murray last night talked a lot about how a lot of drag kings weren't getting pride bookings, and that was the impetus for him to produce this show in the first place. And it was like a three act. I mean, it was basically like a night at BHOF or Burlesque Hall of Fame for those people who know what that is. So is that do you find that to be kind of a problem in most nightlife scenes, this lack of drag kings?
It's like maybe getting like 1% better, but like over time, but it's still an issue. And then even though there's queens who vocalize that they're supportive of kings, a lot of times you still don't find it in the action of bringing us in. And
Hmm.
another issue as well is that like, so I've been told by a queen before is like, well, the issue with kings is that you guys dress down and queens dress up. However, I say a lot of times that is not always the case. Like us kings are bringing in. We are excelling,
Hmm.
and I found that no matter what, that there are kings who, for example, they're retired now. They just retired officially this past weekend, but Damien Deluxe. But I remember that they would bring such great costuming and looks and everything, and they would be put in shows and they would go all out, but still get less money or less attention than somebody who, like a queen, who looked like they just closed their eyes and grabbed what was out of their closet.
Mm-hmm.
So, we there's been that issue, and I will say that in order for us to lift up kings and get them out there, like, you got these queens that are getting so many bookings. Well, they're making the money to be able to put that money back in to their performances and their costuming and all of that. But when these kings don't have the opportunity, we're just trying to work on surviving, let alone trying to update our costuming.
Yeah, well, definitely. And first off, so Damien Deluxe retired?
It's been quite a few years actually since they performed, I think 2019 or 2020, and then the pandemic hit and everything just kind of went downhill with performances, and they got to find out within that time that they were happy. And I mean, they are an owner of Jackalope Tattoo. They have a lot of things going on in their great things going on in their life. But this past weekend, we did Divas and Drag, where they were the artistic producer, and they were able to perform their last few times and have an official retirement, which they got to perform alongside live opera singers, so that was fun.
Yes, you were telling me about that show. It sounds so amazing. And again, it's just a testament to the incredible queer nightlife in the Twin Cities. I loved seeing Damien perform. And also, I was just thinking as you were talking about this kind of misunderstanding that drag queens dress up and drag kings dress down. It's just, I mean, it's like any performance form. There's a range of aesthetics and styles, right?
Yeah, yeah, like, there is sometimes some people are gonna do a greaser number where it's just plain jeans and a white shirt and, give that kind of look, and that's okay. But to me, I've also seen performances where you could have tons of rhinestones and tons of choreography, but still lack any stage presence.
Oh, yeah.
To me, I think the most important thing than anything is stage presence and facial expression and being able to bring that out, and just the bonus is your costuming.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a beautiful costume, but I always think about world famous Bob, who used to say, you can't make an omelet out of a Fabergé egg. So, well, when it comes to your own drag king persona and your own aesthetic, what can people expect who haven't been able to see you perform yet? What goes into a Xavier performance, and what are some of your own inspirations?
I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to performing. I love to bring different looks, different characters, different genres of music. Of course, probably my weakness is comedy. I think my aesthetic with my comedy performances is I want to be able to give the audience an awkward boner.
Yes.
Like, given something where they're just like, given that sideways glance like a dog, like, what is this? But also at the same time, what, I'm turned on by this, I am not understanding this. So
Yeah, and we joke, or I say we, but like I joke so often with friends about seeing the kind of typical straight guy's head explode when he watches a drag queen that he's suddenly into. But I mean, I tell you, at the show last night, there were so many drag king performers. I mean, there were a lot of boners in the audience. Let's just say boners of all gender shapes and sizes were popping off. So
yeah, like, it's amazing to me sometimes when I'll do a show and afterwards I'll have like a fist bump or two from some straight guys out in the audience. So
yes. Also, I just have to say, I mean, your wigs. I could just talk to you for hours about your wigs. I love a good male presenting wig, and you have so many, or it just seems like you have a lot from your photos.
I mean, that is actually interestingly enough, I mostly kind of just inherit wigs. I don't necessarily go out and shop for any. Quite a few are actually from my spouse, so especially if they're long wigs, because women's wigs are so much seem to be much better high quality than what they have for men's wigs out there. And then also the other way I've inherited is I never planned on it, but I have a performer, Dean Demonic, who some people may know as the Dean Winchester of drag, and they have taken me as their Sam Winchester, which I will happily do.
Absolutely. And I had to, I'm just going to admit, I don't know these references. I Googled Sam Winchester and I know that it's a supernatural TV show, right?
Yes, yes, that is
That's
correct.
okay. Also, in your intro, did I say it right? The Mankato cartoon? You also have a Mankato act, right?
Well, I mean, I've performed in Mankato plenty enough, but not
Okay.
necessarily towards Mankato, but
Okay.
yeah, Mankato Pride. I've worked down there a lot of times and put together, produced shows there.
Oh, okay. Okay. I totally misunderstood the reference. Thank you for clarifying. So, besides kind of pulling from, I guess, these like characters like Sam Winchester or Weird Al Yankovic, are there other drag kings that you kind of have as inspirations, or who are some of the first drag kings that you met and performed with, and you when you were first getting into performance?
My first memory of ever seeing drag kings was going to the Twin Cities Pride in 1999, and like I remember getting to see it was like five of them, and they were all in like these red velvety shirts all matching, and they did bye 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 from NSYNC.
Yes.
And I was just like fast. I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like I never, thought at that moment like that's what I'm gonna do, but I really liked their presence, their stage performance, and throughout time I've had so many inspirations from different drag kings to like as of recently, especially the inspirations of the kings that have made it into Beehoff, like Lou
Hmm.
Henry, or Dusty Balls, who was just here this past one, which was phenomenal. Just their stage present, not even having to take up much space on the stage, but made
Hmm.
up for it with their technicality, and just it was phenomenal, which of course I had to tell them.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I'm gonna have Lou Henry Hoover on the pod next month, and I've gotten the pleasure to work with Dusty Balls. When I did a show with him, he brought a fucking boat on stage. Like it was so good. So again, just another testament to the fact that regardless of who's doing the drag, the stage quality, the costuming, the props, like it's just as much happening in the drag king world as it is in the drag queen world.
Absolutely.
So I was snooping more, and you posted that you first got the nickname Dirtyboi performing as a sub for a kink show at the now shuttered Knock Knock Club in Seattle. Please provide details.
So back in the earlier 2000s, I actually met what was became my dom in 2003. She went as Domina Carmen, and she gave me that name. Unfortunately, she has passed, and I have
Mhm.
Dirty Boy tattooed on me in honor of her. But yeah, it's another area in my life I've never expected to go into. Quite a story of how I did, and kind of going into the lesbian U-Haul phase of moving across country to be with somebody, and in that turn stopped out into Denver, Colorado for Thunder in the Mountains for a kink convention. Never been to any sort of kink event, but I dived right into one of the biggest.
Yeah.
That was completely fascinating and eye-opening, and going to so many classes and getting to meet Fakir Musafar and Cleo Dubois, who, I
Mm.
even got to go into a ritual with everybody with the hooks put through their chest and I got to be an energy puller for it. So this is my first kink convention.
Go all in, baby.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I feel like I was just thinking as you were talking about that, like my first experience with kink, kind of like my first experience with burlesque was just not even knowing that these worlds even existed. And then all of a sudden it was like everything clicked, you know?
Like, oh yeah, like it completely made sense. I was like, oh, this is just feels so natural. It, Same with me figuring out in queer in general. It was like the light bulb
Hmm.
just literally went off above my head, and I was just like, oh, that's what I am.
Do you identify more as a sub off stage? And I only ask that because you definitely give major daddy vibes on stage. Yeah, what do you feel about that?
Well, I will say that I'm probably, when it comes to being a sub, I definitely, I would say I've more experience being a sub, but I'm also, I'll make up this word, uh demi-DOMule, which, I've only been a sub for, select people, but I feel like, as I've getting older, I'm definitely coming into the daddy vibes a little bit more.
Yes, and the world thanks you for doing that as well. Yeah, it's like that Joni Mitchell song. You've seen the world from both sides now. As I was thinking about the show last night and just my own experiences with drag queens and burlesque performers, I was curious, what is the more accurate time zone, or who is more on time? Burlesque performers, drag queens, or drag kings?
For sure, it's not the queens.
Yeah, true. That's an easy one.
I think for me in particular, just because I am like, I guess when it's kind of a toss up between burlesque and the kings. Like for me in particular, I'm very much about wanting to start on time. If the audience isn't, fully there as well, I may hold 15 minutes, but other than
Uh-huh.
that, we are starting. Like, and which also got to show why I get put in stage manager positions, because this past weekend I got to like be going around, okay, 30 minutes, okay, 15, 10, 5, and like down to the minutes, like we're on stage.
Yes, yes. So we did a show together last November for the Naughty Revival. And I was just, I mean, so impressed, of course, with your performance, but also, was that the dragged out group that you were with? Or,
Yes, that was actually dragged out, which actually we're bringing that number coming this Saturday for Pride Fest.
thank God. Well, it ran like clockwork. So I was both impressed with the onstage dynamics and all of the offstage spreadsheeting that was going on as well. Well done.
Yeah, I'm now just building up to the perfection that will be happening at the Minneapolis Burlesque Festival in September. So, which I will be stage managing for.
Well, Minneapolis, you're in good hands. Good hands. You're married to another burlesque superstar, Nadia Morena. I was curious, how did you two meet?
By the way, thank you for pronouncing that correctly, because a lot of people are like Nadia Morena or some weird thing, but yeah, it's always incorrect. So thank you.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were going to say, actually, you fucked that up, Chris.
No,
But,
no, you did get it. Interestingly enough, when we first kind of met, I don't know, do you know AJ, who did
yeah.
for Beehoff and all of that? Well, back then they got into a major accident,
Mm.
which a lot of people in the burlesque and drag community put shows together to benefit them for, recuperating and their bills and whatnot. And I did one with Dragged Out for that as well. And Nadi, which, at that time they didn't go by that name, they weren't even in burlesque, they ended up being a shot girl for my show.
Yes.
Of course, when I get overwhelmed seeing somebody or whatever, I just am like, there is, they wouldn't know. They actually, they'll say they had absolutely no idea I had any interest in them. But also, then again, when I'm in show mode, I am in show mode. I am like,
Right.
but yeah, we met back then, and then they were a go-go dancer for a queer event here at the time, and I would always see the creativeness in their costuming. They would just do for go-go dancing. And I remember thinking in my head, like, wow, like you put more thought into some of the performers I have in my own show. Like you should be on stage.
Hmm.
So little by little I got them in dragged out group numbers, and they started liking the stage a little bit more. And then months later that year in September, they like signed up to do solo burlesque performance in Nudie Newbies here,
Yes.
and they won. And they just kind of took off from there. And but yeah, I like, with every thought they put into their performances and whatever, actually they are also a big inspiration of mine, because I'm just like, the detail and the thought,
Hmm.
everything they put into their numbers, I'm just like, that that's amazing, and what I can strive for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just trying to look up here real quick. What is the name of Nadi's design company?
Siren and Ice.
Yes, Siren and Ice. If you're looking for pasties for costumes, make sure you check them out. I'll add that to the show notes too. But beautiful work.
Absolutely. And I we both kind of work along together with that too, and we both have rhinestone competition outfits for people, which is fun because we just get a little smoke a little bit and put on a show and just get into a little mode of adding these little sparkly things all over.
I love that. That's actually another great segue because I was talking with Pinot Noir and Faggoty Randy about this. But do you feel like your burlesque creativity modes complement one another, or is someone always the mess maker and someone's always sweeping up?
Oh, I feel like we are both equally mess and a cleaner at the same time. Just depends on where we are at that moment, but we definitely work together great as a duo because we just kind of feed off of each other, and I feel like our duo numbers kind of come naturally cuz we're just like feeding off of one another, which is fun. But yeah, like, however, I will say though that I am the memory person, where I'm just like, we're getting ready for our shows or whatever, be like, oh, do you got this, do you got this, and like, oh, okay, okay. So I have that for me.
Yes, that is a much needed skill. Every burlesque performer needs someone who just asks them, "Have you packed everything for the show tonight?"
Yes, especially like props and such.
Oh my God. I was just thinking the first time I went over to my boyfriend's apartment, I was like, oh, thank God. It's like equally cleanish, but also kind of messy, like my apartment. Because it's like, I'm like, you know, please don't look at my craft room because you might not ever want to see me again if you do. Anyway, I guess what I'm saying is it's important to to either be able to tolerate a person's creativity or to have similar creative modes.
I mean, sometimes after, shows in particular, it could go on the episode of Hoarders, if possible.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. With you and Nadi, do you feel like because you work a lot together, how do you find time to kind of just be with each other and not, I guess, go off of show mode?
I will say lately that has honestly been a challenge,
Mm,
especially since I've just been completely busy with just regular work and along with all the other side things. But usually, I think our relaxation time is in the evening, just putting something on TV and just having low spoons like relaxation with our pups because
Yes.
they need all our attention as well.
Yes. Your dogs are so adorable, and you perform with at least one of them, right? Scruffin's the dog?
Yes, yes, Scruffins. He actually performed in my White and Nerdy number where he got brought out as with his little Spock outfit on. And I think he's built quite a complex over that. Like he's just like, yeah, I'm wonderful. When am I going on stage next, you know?
Exactly. They say never perform with children or animals. It'll get to their head.
Yeah, it absolutely is. You could see it every day with how he herds me into doing things, and I'm like, who is the adult in this situation? It's me, but he thinks he is.
Yeah, he's like nudging you towards the E6000 and pile of rhinestones.
I actually, eventually once I get some of the costuming redone and stuff, I would really love to bring him back on stage again. The other two, they're too much of a wild card to bring them out. They're yeah.
Hmm.
One's a little too wild, and the other I think would be afraid of too much attention.
I can imagine what it would be like for me to do a number with my cat, and I feel like she would just glare, pretty much do what she does now, which is either sleep or kind of glare at me, you know?
Uh, hey, that whole glaring could be make a whole number on its
It
own.
could be a gimmick. Make it into a gimmick. In addition to your drag king persona, you've occasionally performed as a drag queen as well, or is that a one-off for one of those shows?
This actually started in mid 2000s, not in Dragged Out, but us drag performers started doing what we call a flip show, where, and now in Dragged Out, it kind of always goes alongside of like in April, going with April Fools to switch it up and then go into the opposite. So, and I started, even though I know there's a more popular queen that goes by this name, but I started this using Penny Tration as a name back in early mid 2000s as my once a year queen persona.
Yes.
But yeah, I will say that's a really hard thing to do once a year because you're just like building up this list of songs all from women and you're just like, oh, which one do I want to do for my once a year? And it's like, but it's loads of fun. And I find that the performers that join in on it, they always have such a good time and want to do it the following year because it feels like there's less pressure. They have so much fun with it, and they're just. I always say to the crowd, you'll get to see some kings in heels, and it might look like Bambi on ice. You don't know what you're gonna get, but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
What are the differences, or are there any differences between a penetration performance and a Xavier performance outside of just drag queen versus drag king?
I think very similar styles when it comes to my king. I just am all over the place, but I do favor comedy.
Uh-huh.
Like, for example, the last one I did is I remember smoking one day and listening to Selena Gomez's "Good for You," and she starts off with "I'm a 14 carat," and I was like, "Oh my god, what is good for you? Carrots." So I dressed up as a carrot and did that song. I even had the vegetable peeler is like I'm shaving my
Oh
legs.
my
And,
God.
and in the rap part, I which I the first time I ever did it, I actually had Damien Deluxe, but they were dressed as the Hidden Valley Ranch bottle and
Yes.
came out and did that. I had carrot feather fans with the whole green stalks and yeah, I just get ridiculous with it.
Oh my God, I love that. And is that act as Xavier or as penetration?
That's as penetration.
Oh my God.
And then like just yeah, I love to do funny numbers as a queen. Just like taking Sherry Vine's Bad Romance parody, and girl, I just shit my pants, like
Yes.
just with like a white slip with toilet paper covered all over it. And I put a little broomstick to attach to the back of it that had toilet paper rolls attached. So when the audience would grab the toilet paper, I could walk across the stage and it would just start floating away.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
and of course, a toilet seat crown. So you could imagine me going to Home Depot and like kind of putting a toilet seat on my head to kind of get the see if what the look would be like. So I can only imagine what customers at Home Depot thought.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I was thinking when I usually create acts as well, I always start thinking like, where's the joke or where's the humor? Like what is funny about this act? And it's only been in the past couple of years where I've also been trying to think more like, well, where is the sex in the act or where is the eroticism in the act? How do you balance or how do you find that balance? Or is that a balance that you're even looking for when you're creating acts?
A lot of my acts as Xavier, I find I usually try to have a combination of both, to where it's just like I'm gonna have Magic Mike persona, but I'll ride some toy horses, you
Right.
know?
Yes.
And the one thing though I do find that I'm working on getting into more is, so I've done now 22 years of drag, and my biggest inspirations lately, or even since being with Nadi, is diving more and more into burlesque.
Hmm.
So, and that is one thing where I am starting to work on bringing out more sexy, not saying funny can't be sexy,
Right.
which that can, but like also I find burlesque is much more challenging than drag.
Really?
uh, at least for me, because like I feel like a safety net for drag performers is lip syncing.
Mm. Hmm.
It's all about the mouth and whatnot, and with that, facial expression comes kind of more naturally because you're moving your mouth and all of that. But when it comes to burlesque, the art of striptease, I know that lately over the years, more drag performers have been working on trying out burlesque a little bit more. There definitely, of course, there's been successes with, Lou Henry and Dusty Balls, like we mentioned earlier. What I find a lot of times when drag, they try to fast get into it,
Hmm.
I have to say, basically, just because you're taking your clothes off doesn't mean it's burlesque.
Mm.
Then, if it was, in that case, I'm doing burlesque every day.
Yeah. Well, and I do think that burlesque and drag and something that I love about the Minneapolis scene is that every show I've ever been in, there's always burlesque, there's always drag kings, there is like a spectrum of performance styles. But I think burlesque and drag really inform one another, and at times like the line really blurs, like we are
Absolutely.
like the way that burlesque performers present gender and also subvert it on stage. And even last night, I mean, there were so many elements of striptease to a lot of drag kings numbers, even if they didn't go completely like down to a thong or a jockstrap or something like that.
My biggest thing that I always mention with to drag performers wanting to do burlesque, I'm like, don't remove your clothes as if you are just removing your clothes at your house at the end of the night. Give them a little bit of tease, and that's what I'm working on, because I think also a lot of times people who start out, same with drag or any type of performance, or even just talking in front of people, is sharking, is moving across that stage super fast and thinking you're going slower than you are, but you are not. That's one thing I'm still, I'm working on, always improving, because I always feel that we always have room to improve, because if you don't, you're going to become stagnant in performance. So I always want to be able to take those breaths and take that time on stage,
Hmm.
even though sometimes I think I move faster than I do.
Oh yeah, yeah. I always have to remind myself that, especially like breaking in a new act, like to slow the F down and like, you know, fill the moment.
Yeah, like, like they could add that little movement of seeing you breathe on stage could be just enough. Or give them the take inspiration from your cat and just give them a glare.
Yes. Oh my God, that's what I've been needing. I wish I would show you my cat right now, but she's sitting far enough away and glaring back at me that I can't reach her right now.
And this is the reason why I went upstairs, because the dogs like to look at the window, and anything that moves out there could be possible barking.
Oh
So I'm
yes.
like,
Yes. I've seen that you've posted a lot about your Hungarian roots. Do you have any Hungarian drag king inspirations, or does the Hungarian make its way on stage?
I mean, funny thing is you mentioned, so I don't, there's not really any Hungarian inspiration there or anything, but I've actually been really thinking about bringing some Hungarian classical music and doing some burlesque to that. So
Yes.
that is hopefully my future inspiration, and of getting actual Hungarian costuming to be able to make it complete. So hopefully I will be bringing that out in sometime in the future.
I look forward to that. And I have to link you up with my friend Tanya Marquardt, who is a non-binary writer and performance artist. They're currently in Budapest learning traditional Hungarian boy dances for this ongoing performance piece that I got to see a workshop of, but it's incredible.
Oh, well, I would absolutely love to see that.
Yeah. So this podcast episode is going to come out at the end of Pride Month. And something I've been kind of half joking about with all of my queer friends, but also seriously asking too, is what's something or who is someone that's making you feel proud right now?
Oh, just everybody within the queer community that's just elevating each other. Like, I just, the community that just is doing what they can to go out there and help each other out and supporting one another. They just overall just make me feel good to be in this queer bubble.
Good. That's beautiful. What's something that people can do in Minneapolis to support the queer community right now? Or I should say, what's something in the Twin Cities that people can be doing?
Well, the one thing that I have to say is, luckily, when it comes to all these drag bans and whatever that are happening in other states, I feel very lucky and fortunate to be in a blue state that is been always very, like, having protections for the queer and community and drag community in general. But just going out and supporting, going to these shows, supporting your queer community, speaking up for when you hear, even in your own family, if you hear things that are against the queer community, speak up for us.
Hmm.
Be that ally. That's my biggest thing. Like, be that ally, and no matter what, don't be complicit.
Yeah, and you know what? I've been thinking a lot about that too, because certainly in even within the queer community, right? I mean, I think catching oneself to make sure that we're not being complicit, just because if you're not a drag queen or you're not a trans person and these laws don't feel like they're directly affecting you, they're still affecting people you know, and they are affecting the queer community as a whole. So I don't know. I just feel like, especially right now, yes, straight people, absolutely, we need as allies, but we need everybody in the queer community as a whole to really be getting each other's backs, you know?
Yeah, especially, doesn't matter where you live. Like, we need to be supportive of those, the queer and drag performers that are in the southern states. Like, they don't, not everybody can just get up and have the ability to move somewhere else. So what we need to do is be fighting for them just as much as anybody else.
Yes, 100%. Well, last question. Do you have a dream show that you are wanting to produce, or what's next for you in general, just with drag or burlesque or dragged out?
Just in general, I just want to keep elevating Dragged Out, eventually bringing more and more guests from out of state, even. That's my hopes. And then eventually celebrating one day our 20th year, which will be in 2026. It's so wild to feel that, so much time has gone by to be celebrating that, getting together with the other drag kings and being able to learn from each other and build our community up even more, and just being creative. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's make some art.
Yes, yes. And Xavier, where can people find you?
You can find me on I'm on Instagram. It's Dirtyboi, spelled with the I at the end, Xavier. Yeah, you could find me at there, or you can if you're in the Twin Cities, every third Friday of the month at the Black Heart of St. Paul. Within the IG, you'll be able to find all the various things I'm up to.
Great. I will make sure to tag all those. Well, Xavier, I know we haven't actually gone to perform that much together, but I truly just am in awe of your performances. And, something I'm always reminded of when I get to work in Minneapolis is even when I was growing up in North Dakota, the queer communities there are so tight and so supportive. And I think that's just, I think like in metropolitan areas, queer people, we take it for granted. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel so lucky when I get to be in Minneapolis because I feel like I'm around such stars and also just like such great, great people. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. I get to feel it out, especially occasionally we get to go and perform in small towns, and it's amazing feeling. You could definitely tell how hungry they are to have drag there. Like, anytime I've gone and visited, they're just like, treat you like royalty, and it's amazing. And I'm hoping that we can just continue to go out no matter what and do what we do.
Yes. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to another episode of Showboys. Join us next week. And until then, you know what? I hope you have a great Pride. And no matter how you identify, I hope you go out and do something today that makes you feel proud. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Showboys. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you didn't like it,
you are a whore, darling.